No being in the galaxy was ever foolish enough to pet the almighty alien Tyrant, Nox, Supreme Commander of the Betazoids, until today. On an otherwise unremarkable morning in rural Iowa, middle-aged human farmer Jerry Ross gaped in shock as his 8-year-old daughter Lily skipped fearlessly up to the towering, muscle-bound alien conqueror who had just landed his massive warship in their fields. As Nox leveled his plasma rifle at Jerry, declaring Earth's immediate submission to Betazoid rule, Lily reached out a tiny hand and began petting the brutal warlord's leg. "Nice alien," she cooed. Nox froze, eyes widening in utter bafflement. In his long, blood-stained career, no creature had ever approached him without abject terror before, let alone dared to touch him. To his complete surprise, an ancient reflex of his species kicked in at the child's gentle pats. Before he could stop himself, a deep, rumbling purr began emanating from his chest. Lily giggled with delight at the odd sound. The human farmers emerged warily from homes and barns to witness the unprecedented sight of Earth's would-be conqueror being stroked into docility by a little girl. Jerry crept forward and joined his daughter in tentatively petting the massive alien. Nox's purring intensified as he permitted the contact, unused to such freely given affection. Emboldened, the other humans slowly approached to pet the fierce Betazoid too. From the ship's ramp, Nox's appalled second-in-command Zor looked on in disgust. This was conduct unbecoming of a Betazoid commander. Pulling out his communicator, Zor prepared to report this shameful development to the High Command. Meanwhile, footage of Lily petting the purring alien invader went viral within minutes of a farmer posting it online. Across the world, humans expressed amazement that the key to neutralizing the alien threat was simple kindness and touch. Something shifted inside Nox as he savored the pleasant sensation of the humans' caresses. These people he'd come to conquer weren't reacting with the fear and revulsion he was accustomed to, but with compassion and warmth. A realization took root. Perhaps conquest and cruelty weren't the only way. Maybe a different path was possible, one of coexistence and connection. But Nox knew embracing such heretical notions would mean making an enemy of his own warmongering race. With his human companion's support, however, a new way forward seemed achievable for the first time. The battle lines were drawn, not between Betazoid and human, but between the old ways of war and a future of peace. As the shocking video of Nox purring contentedly while being petted by little Lily Ross and her fellow humans circulated across the globe, it sparked both amazement and fierce debate. Government and military leaders convened urgent meetings, struggling to formulate a response to this unprecedented development. At the United Nations headquarters in New York, Secretary General Takeshi Nakamura called an emergency session of the Security Council. Pacing before the assembled delegates, Nakamura laid out a radical proposition. "This astonishing footage has revealed an unexpected vulnerability in our would-be conquerors," he declared, gesturing to the frozen image of Nox submitting to Lily's gentle caresses. "I believe we must seize this opportunity to pursue a peaceful resolution. I propose we assemble a delegation, with the Ross family at its heart, to parley with the Betazoid leadership." Heated discussion erupted in the chamber. Some decried negotiating with invaders as capitulation, insisting on a show of military strength. Others expressed skepticism that an enemy as fierce as the Betazoids could be swayed by mere petting. But Nakamura's impassioned arguments gradually won out. The council voted to authorize the diplomatic mission and extend an official request to the Ross family. When the Secretary General's call reached their Iowa farmhouse, Jerry Ross nearly dropped the phone in shock. After a hushed conversation with his wife Marie, they agreed they had to help however they could, for Lily's sake and the world's. Within hours, a sleek UN helicopter touched down in the Ross's front field and whisked the family away to New York. At UN headquarters, Jerry and Lily met the hastily assembled delegation of seasoned diplomats, politicians, and military leaders from across the globe. Some regarded the unassuming farmers dubiously, but seeing Lily's cheerful courage, their doubts faded. The fate of Earth rested on this little girl's ability to once again sway a deadly alien foe. Under a flag of truce, the delegation boarded a swift UN shuttle bound for the Betazoid mothership looming in orbit. As they hurtled through the inky void, each grappled silently with the magnitude of the task ahead. Jerry held Lily close, praying her innocent power would prove strong enough to turn the tide. The shuttle shuddered as it penetrated the force field, shielding the mammoth ship's docking bay. Emerging into the cavernous space, the human party gaped at the sheer immensity of the alien vessel. Harsh red light glinted off rows of menacing warcraft as a phalanx of armored Betazoid warriors marched forward to greet them. "You will come with us," the tallest guard rumbled, plasma rifle at the ready. "The High Command awaits." With a fortifying breath, Secretary General Nakamura nodded to his companions. The delegation fell into step behind him, flanked by their stone-faced escort. The humans couldn't help but marvel at the alien architecture as they moved through soaring, murky corridors. Harsh angles and pulsing conduits, combined in a style at once aggressive and efficient, much like the Betazoids themselves. At last they arrived at a grand chamber deep in the ship's heart. Banners bearing fearsome crests hung from towering walls. A semicircle of elevated platforms surrounded a central dais, the Betazoid High Command, poised like birds of prey awaiting tribute. "Why have you vermin scurried aboard our ship?" spat the centermost alien, a hulking, grizzled figure jam-packed with weapons. "I am High Commander Krax. Explain yourselves before I order your atoms scattered across this system." Secretary General Nakamura stepped forward, hands raised placatingly. "High Commander Krax, I am Secretary General Takeshi Nakamura of the United Nations of Earth. We come to you in the spirit of peace to propose a truce between our peoples." Krax threw back his head with a barking laugh, echoed by his subordinates. "Peace? With mewling prey such as you? We are Betazoid. Conquering is our way." At that pivotal moment, before the High Commander could make good on his dire threat, little Lily Ross broke away from her father's sheltering arms. Jerry lunged for her in panic, but she evaded his grasp, scampering fearlessly up the dais to Krax's feet. The chamber fell deathly silent as the tiny human child gazed up at the towering alien warlord, his clawed hand twitching towards a holstered disruptor. The human delegation tensed, fearing a disastrous end to their gambit. But Lily simply smiled her gap-toothed smile and reached up to gently pat the High Commander's densely muscled leg. "You're a big alien," she informed him seriously, "but big doesn't mean bad. Want to be friends?" Krax stared down at the minuscule earthling, pawing at him with such innocent boldness. Shock warred with outrage on his craggy features. The other Betazoids muttered uneasily, some flexing their hands around weapons. For an eternal moment, the scene teetered on a precipice. Then a deep rumbling purr began to emanate from the High Commander's barrel chest. To the utter astonishment of humans and Betazoids alike, Krax lowered himself to one knee to grant the girl better access. His purr intensified as Lily stroked his head spines with a delighted giggle. The ferocious Betazoid warrior slumped in uncharacteristic bliss, eyes fluttering closed. Seizing the moment, Secretary General Nakamura stepped forward, heart pounding. He could scarcely believe the words coming out of his own mouth. "High Commander Krax, we propose a cessation of hostilities between our kinds. In exchange, we offer regular petting sessions with our young ones to foster greater understanding and connection between human and Betazoid. With time, perhaps we might build a framework of peaceful coexistence." The other Betazoid commanders glanced at each other in shock, antennae quivering. A few looked on the cusp of protest. But Krax, lost in the novel pleasure of Lily's ministrations, held up a commanding hand to silence them. "Your proposal merits consideration, Secretary General," the High Commander purred, clearly struggling to maintain his dignity while being petted into docility by a small child. "We will adjourn to deliberate. My warriors will show you to guest quarters to await our decision." As UN security personnel escorted the human party out of the chamber, Jerry scooped up Lily, clutching her tight in relief and awe. Tears glinted in Secretary General Nakamura's eyes as he embraced the father and daughter. "You may have just altered the course of human history, Lily," he murmured, "and perhaps Betazoid history as well." While the Supreme Commander and his lieutenants clashed over the humans' audacious offer high above, on the green earth below, a different sort of clash was brewing. In the days since Nox first succumbed to Lily's soothing touch, the battle-hardened Betazoid found himself increasingly drawn to the foreign charms of the Ross farm and its inhabitants. To his own surprise, Nox took to joining Jerry in the fields, learning to till crops and mend fences. He marveled at the simple satisfaction of working land for sustenance rather than scorching it for conquest. Evenings found him awkwardly perched in the Ross's cozy kitchen, savoring Marie's hearty cooking and halting attempts at conversation. Through it all, Nox grappled with a growing sense of kinship with these aliens who had been so quick to show him kindness. He'd never known connection like this among his own kind, never felt truly welcomed anywhere before. The more he experienced the easy camaraderie of the human farmers, the more his lifelong Betazoid beliefs felt hollow. But these dangerous new feelings would soon be put to the test, for not all of Nox's comrades were content to go as soft as their commander. Zor, Nox's erstwhile second, watched his superior's heretical behavior with mounting disgust, fraternizing with the enemy, lowering himself to manual labor, even casting aside his armor. It was a betrayal of the Betazoid way. Disruptor pistol strapped to his hip, Zor burst into the barn where Nox was helping Jerry repair a plow one afternoon. He leveled the weapon squarely at the treacherous commander's chest. "You dishonor our race with this deviant foolishness," Zor spat in their guttural tongue, antennae flat with rage. "Consorting with cattle! Have you forgotten our purpose? Our pride as warriors?" Nox looked calmly up at his overflowing subordinate, unperturbed by the disruptor's whining hum. Rising slowly to his full height, he placed himself protectively between Zor and a quaking Jerry. "No, Zor," he said quietly. "I haven't forgotten our pride, but I'm beginning to question what we take pride in." He gestured to the crude but effective plow, to Jerry, to the distant white farmhouse where Marie and Lily could be seen hanging laundry in the yard. "There is value here, richness. These humans create, Zor. They nurture. All we know is how to destroy." Nox shook his massive head. "I am tired of destroying. Perhaps it's time we considered another way." "Another way?" Zor snarled. "Pah! You've gone mad!" His finger tightened on the disruptor's trigger. "If you won't lead us to glory, I'll blast you down and do it myself." Nox met his former lieutenant's wild eyes, seeing the all-consuming hatred and bloodthirst he himself had so recently embodied. Had his own gaze ever looked so soulless, so devoid of empathy or deeper purpose? In that tense instant, he made a decision that would shape the fate of two peoples. Slowly, deliberately, Nox reached up and unholstered his own sidearm. Then, with a clang that rang through the barn, he cast it aside. "No, Zor," Nox said softly. "No more blasting. No more glory and death." He held out an open hand, a shield of will backed by newfound compassion. "We have been given a chance to be more. I intend to take it." For a long, trembling moment, the standoff held. Jerry pressed himself against the barn wall, hardly daring to breathe. Then, with a last snarl of disgust, Zor lowered his pistol. He spat at Nox's feet before spinning on his heel and stalking from the barn. The Betazoid renegade was undoubtedly heading back to the warship to muster allies against this new insanity infecting their ranks. Let him. There would be a reckoning, and soon, a battle for the soul of the Betazoid race between the old ways of conquest and the tantalizing promise of peace. But in that moment, watching Zor's departing form, Nox felt only firm willpower. He turned to a still shaking Jerry, resting a heavy hand on the man's shoulder. "Come, my friend," the alien rumbled. "We have a plow to repair, and a future to build." As the unlikely allies returned to their work in the dusty barn far above, the Betazoid High Command continued to argue the merits of the Earthlings' truce. And on the blue pearl of a planet below, millions of humans waited on tenterhooks to learn if their daring gambit would yield coexistence, or a war unlike any their beleaguered species had ever seen. The pieces were in motion, the battle lines drawn. An interstellar conflict of values had begun. The fate of two species hung in the balance. While diplomacy unfolded above, Nox found unexpected joy in the simplicity of farm life. One balmy evening, as fireflies danced over the cornfields, Marie Ross emerged from the farmhouse with an old acoustic guitar. Ever heard music before, Knox? She asked, settling onto the porch swing. The Betazoid shook his massive head. Our society values efficiency. We have no music. Marie's fingers danced across the strings, coaxing out a gentle melody. Knox's antennae quivered at the unfamiliar vibrations. His eyes widened as Marie began to sing, her voice soft and sweet in the twilight. Amazing, Knox breathed when the song ended. It's like mathematics, but for the soul. Marie laughed and held out the guitar. Want to try? Knox's clawed hands dwarfed the instrument, but Marie patiently showed him how to form chords. His first attempts were cacophonous, yet he persevered. Hours slipped by as Knox discovered the joy of creating sound purely for its own sake. The peaceful moment shattered as Knox's wrist communicator crackled to life. A hurried voice spoke in guttural Betazoid. Knox's expression darkened as he listened. "What is it?" Jerry asked, concern etching his features. Knox's shoulders slumped. "Trouble on the mothership. My former second, Zor. He's gathering dissidents. They see our new approach as weakness." "You have to go back," Marie said softly. Knox nodded, conflict clear in his alien eyes. "I've found peace here I never knew existed, but I can't abandon my people when they need guidance most." Jerry clapped a hand on Knox's arm. "You've changed, my friend. Maybe you can help them change too." With a heavy heart, Knox activated his emergency transport beacon. In a shimmer of light, he vanished from the farm that had become his sanctuary. Knox materialized on the mothership's bridge to find chaos. Alarms blared. Betazoid warriors grappled with each other. At the center of the melee stood Zor, disruptor aimed at the cowering high command. "Traitors!" Zor snarled. "You would have us become pets to these mewling humans." Knox strode forward, unarmed. "Stand down, Zor. This isn't our way." Zor's antenna flattened in rage. "You dare speak of our way? Look at you, soft, weaponless. You reek of earth." "I've learned there's strength in softness," Knox countered, "in understanding." Their heated exchange was interrupted by a small figure toddling onto the bridge. Lily Ross, having slipped away from the human delegation, wandered wide-eyed through the fray. "Knox!" she squealed, oblivious to the danger. Before anyone could react, Lily scampered up to Zor. The hardened warrior tensed, disruptor wavering. Then, with all the innocent affection of a child, Lily reached up and stroked Zor's leg. The effect was instantaneous. Zor's eyes glazed. A deep involuntary purr rumbled from his chest. His grip on the weapon loosened. Seizing the moment, Knox pressed his advantage. "You feel it, don't you? The peace, the connection. This is what we've been missing, brother." Many of the rebel Betazoids lowered their weapons, confusion replacing anger. But a core group of extremists refused to yield. "Death before dishonor!" one cried, lunging for the ship's control panel. Alarms shrieked as the self-destruct sequence engaged. Knox's mind raced. They had mere minutes before the reactor went critical, taking the ship and Earth's orbit with it. "Evacuate the humans!" Knox barked, sprinting for the engineering bay. He had to stop the countdown, but how? As Knox grappled with the alien technology, a small hand tugged his pant leg. He looked down to see Lily, having once again evaded her protectors. "Need help?" she asked brightly. Knox opened his mouth to refuse, to send her to safety. But something in the child's guileless expression gave him pause. He thought of the music Marie had shown him, of the unexpected melodies that had opened his heart. "Yes, little one," Knox said, lifting Lily to the control panel. "I think I do." "Do need help," Knox said, lifting Lily to the control panel. "I think I know how to stop this, but I'll need your small hands." Lily nodded solemnly, her eyes wide with drive. Under Knox's careful guidance, she reached into a narrow access port, her tiny fingers manipulating delicate circuitry that Knox's claws couldn't manage. Seconds ticked by, each moment an eternity as they worked in tense silence. Finally, a series of lights on the panel flashed green. The alarms fell silent. "We did it!" Lily cheered, throwing her arms around Knox's neck. The Betazoid's antennae quivered with relief, and something else, pride perhaps, or affection. He had no time to ponder these unfamiliar emotions as the ship's intercom crackled to life. "Attention all personnel," High Commander Krax's voice boomed. "The crisis has been averted. I am declaring an immediate ceasefire and opening negotiations with the human delegation." In the days that followed, the mothership buzzed with activity. Knox found himself at the center of it all, working tirelessly alongside Krax and the human diplomats to forge a new path forward. As news of the near disaster and subsequent truce spread, Betazoids across the Empire reacted with a mix of shock, curiosity, and cautious hope. Knox and Krax seized the moment, reaching out to moderate leaders they had long dismissed as weak. One such leader was Drac, a young warrior whose impassioned speeches about honor and purpose had begun to resonate with the rank and file. Where once Knox might have seen him as a threat, he now recognized a potential ally. "Our people stand at a crossroads," Drac declared in a transmission broadcast across Betazoid space. "For too long, we have equated strength with conquest, but true strength lies in wisdom, in the courage to change." His words struck a chord, and support for Knox and Krax's reformist movement swelled. But not everyone was eager to embrace this new vision. Zor and a cadre of hardliners managed to commandeer a small fleet, slipping away in the chaos. They retreated to Vexar, a distant colony world, from which they began to broadcast their own message. "Remember who you are." Zor's face filled view screens across the Empire, his antenna rigid with fury. "We are warriors, conquerors. These cowards would have us become lapdogs to primitive aliens." To counter this rhetoric, the UN delegation proposed an audacious plan. With Jerry and Marie's blessing, they arranged for Lily to appear in a series of transmissions alongside the towering Zorgax, their gentle interactions a powerful symbol of harmony between species. As reforms took root and popular support grew, Knox and his allies convened a special council to rewrite the very foundations of Betazoid society. The once imposing chambers of the High Command were transformed, filled now with voices from all walks of Betazoid life. But even as they debated the shape of their new government, alarms blared. Zor had made his move. "Incoming transmission from the capital," a young aide reported, her antennae twitching nervously. "Zor's forces have launched an assault on the city center." Knox's mind focused as he watched the footage of loyalist troops storming government buildings. He turned to the human delegates, his eyes filled with grit. "I never thought I'd say this," he rumbled, "but we need your help." Within hours, human peacekeepers were deploying alongside Knox's progressive Betazoid forces. The streets of the capital became a battleground, the fate of two civilizations hanging in the balance. As the fighting raged, Knox found himself pinned down with a mixed squad of humans and Betazoids. Disruptor fire crackled overhead as they sheltered behind a crumbling wall. "We're outgunned," a human soldier shouted over the din. "We need to fall back." Knox's antenna twitched as he assessed their position. Then his eyes fell on a nearby storefront, its windows shattered, but its contents intact. "No," he said, a plan forming. "We need to go forward, and I know how." He explained quickly, and soon human and Betazoid alike were gathering what they needed. As Zor's forces advanced, they were met not with return fire, but with something entirely unexpected. Music erupted from dozens of improvised instruments. The haunting melody Marie had taught Knox on that peaceful evening filled the air, cutting through the chaos of battle. For a moment, the shooting stopped. Zor's troops lowered their weapons, confusion evident in their slack antenna. In that opening, Knox's forces surged forward, disarming the stunned hardliners with minimal bloodshed. As the dust settled and Zor was led away in restraints, Knox allowed himself a small smile. The battle was won, but the real work of rebuilding their society was only beginning. The dust settled over the capital, but the real work was just beginning. Knox stood on the bridge of the mothership, gazing down at the blue-green orb of Earth. The ship thrummed with activity as human and Betazoid delegates bustled about, preparing for the next crucial phase. "Commander," a young aide approached, antennae twitching nervously. "The UN Secretary-General's shuttle is approaching." Knox nodded, straightening his newly designed diplomatic uniform. The garment felt strange after years of battle armor, but it was a necessary symbol of the changes sweeping through Betazoid society. Secretary General Takeshi Nakamura strode onto the bridge, his eyes widening at the alien technology surrounding him. "Impressive," he murmured, before turning to Knox with an outstretched hand. "It's an honor to finally meet in person, Commander." As they shook hands, Knox marveled at how natural the gesture now felt. "The honor is mine, Secretary General. Your vision made this moment possible." Nakamura's eyes crinkled with a smile. "Vision is nothing without those brave enough to enact it. Now shall we begin?" The next weeks were a whirlwind of negotiations. Knox found himself constantly amazed by the human capacity for diplomacy. Where Betazoids had once seen only conquest, the UN team proposed intricate cultural exchanges and scientific collaborations. "We need to transition our economy," Drac argued during one heated session. "For generations, our industry has focused solely on war production. We require guidance to diversify." Nakamura leaned forward, his expression thoughtful. "What if we establish joint ventures? Human companies partnering with Betazoid manufacturers to retool your factories for peaceful production?" The idea sparked a flurry of discussion. Knox watched with pride as his people grappled with concepts of trade and cooperation rather than subjugation. As the treaty took shape, Knox insisted on one particular element. "The signing must take place on the Ross family farm," he said firmly. "It's where this all began." The day before the ceremony, Knox stood in the familiar barn, inhaling the scent of hay and machinery. Jerry approached, wiping grease from his hands. "Never thought I'd see the day," the farmer chuckled. "Alien diplomats in my backyard." Knox's antennae twitched with amusement. Stranger things have happened. A human child petting a Betazoid warrior, for instance. Their laughter was cut short by the urgent beeping of Knox's communicator. The Betazoid's expression darkened as he listened to the report. "What is it?" Jerry asked, concern etching his features. Knox's teeth gritted. "A terrorist cell, remnants of Zor's faction planning to disrupt the signing." Within hours, a joint task force of human and Betazoid operatives had captured the cell's leader. Krista, a battle-scarred warrior, glared defiantly at her interrogators. "You're too late," she spat. "Our reach goes deeper than you can imagine." As Krista's revelations unfolded, a chill ran through Knox. The conspiracy had wormed its way into the highest echelons of the new Betazoid government. With time running out before the treaty signing, Knox assembled an elite team to root out the infiltrators. They worked tirelessly, following leads and uncovering moles. Each revelation sent shockwaves through the fragile, new alliance. Trust so carefully built threatened to crumble. In the final hours before the ceremony, Krista finally broke. "The bomb," she whispered, defeat in her eyes. "It's already in place." Knox's blood ran cold. He barked orders into his communicator, mobilizing every available asset. As the sun rose over the Ross farm, casting golden light on the gathered dignitaries, a frantic search unfolded behind the scenes. Secretary General Nakamura stood at the podium, unaware of the danger. Knox scanned the crowd, his senses on high alert. Then he spotted it, a flicker of movement near the makeshift stage. Time seemed to slow as Knox lunged forward, tackling the would-be assassin. They grappled in the dirt, the human crowd gasping in shock. With a swift move, Knox pinned his opponent, disarming the detonator. Silence fell over the gathering. Then, from the back of the crowd, a small voice piped up. "Good job, Knox," Lily called out, her face beaming with pride. The tension broke. Laughter and applause rippled through the assembly. As security led the thwarted assassin away, Knox stood, brushing dirt from his uniform. Nakamura approached, his expression a mix of gratitude and persistence. "Shall we continue?" he asked. Knox nodded, a smile tugging at his lips. "Yes, we have a treaty to sign." "Sign?" Knox finished, his antennae twitching with anticipation. As the treaty's ink dried, a cheer erupted from the assembled crowd. Humans and Betazoids alike embraced, their joy palpable in the crisp farm air. But the celebration was short-lived. Knox's communicator chirped urgently. He stepped away, brow furrowing as he listened to the incoming transmission. "Impossible," he growled, Turning to Secretary General Nakamura, "We have a situation on Avaris." Within hours, the mothership's war room buzzed with activity. Holographic displays flickered, showing the Avaris colony world engulfed in chaos. Ryla, Krista's firebrand cousin, had seized control of the capital and key resource mines. "They reject the treaty," Drac reported, his voice tight. "Ryla demands we renounce it and return to hardline rule, or Avaris will secede and wage war." Nakamura's face paled. This could unravel everything we've worked for. Nox's claws dug into the table's surface. "We can't let that happen." As they debated strategy, a small figure slipped into the room. Lily, her eyes wide but determined, tugged on Nox's uniform. "I want to help," she said, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. Nox opened his mouth to refuse, but Jerry interrupted. "Let her speak. She's earned that right." Lily took a deep breath. "Send me to Avaris. I can talk to them, show them we don't have to fight." A stunned silence fell over the room. Nox's antennae drooped with concern. "It's too dangerous, little one." But Lily stood her ground. "You said it yourself, Nox. I have a special connection with your people. Please, let me try." Against his better judgment, Nox found himself agreeing. Within hours, a shuttle streaked towards Avaris, Lily at its heart, protected by a highly trained strike force. As they entered Avaris airspace, rebel fighters swarmed. The shuttle rocked under their assault, forced down outside the capital. Nox watched from the mothership, claws clenched, as Ryla's forces surrounded the crash site. "Hostages secured," a rebel transmission crackled. "The human child is unharmed." Nox's mind raced. He turned to Drac, his eyes blazing. "Prepare a rescue team. We move now." Under cover of darkness, Nox led an elite squad towards the rebel stronghold. They encountered fierce resistance, Ryla's commandos proving their mettle in close-quarters combat. Disruptor fire lit up the night as Nox pressed forward, driven by a singular purpose: reach Lily. Inside the compound, Lily stood before Ryla. The rebel leader's antennae twitched with confusion as she gazed at the small human. "Why do you not cower?" Ryla demanded. Lily met her gaze steadily. "Because I'm not afraid of you. I understand you." For a moment, Ryla's fierce expression softened. Then she shook her head, snarling. "Take her away!" As guards moved to obey, alarms blared. Nox's team had breached the perimeter. In the chaos that followed, Lily seized her chance. She ran to the compound's communications array, broadcasting across Avaris. "People of Avaris," her young voice rang out, "I come from Earth, a world that knows the cost of hatred. Violence only breeds more violence. We can choose a different path." As her words echoed across the colony, battles raged in the streets. Moderate betazoids, swayed by Lily's plea, began to turn against Ryla's extremists. The tide truly shifted when Zor, once Nox's bitter rival, stood beside Lily. "I was wrong," he declared. "There is strength in peace." Ryla, watching her support crumble, vanished into the night. Nox's forces secured the compound, but the victory felt hollow. Somewhere out there, a dangerous enemy still lurked. As dawn broke over Avaris, Nox received an urgent transmission from the capital. A massive energy signature had been detected, an antimatter bomb, primed and ready to obliterate the heart of the reformist movement. "She's there," Nox realized, his blood running cold. Ryla's making her final stand. With time running out, Nox assembled a strike team. They raced towards the capital, knowing that the fate of two civilizations hung in the balance. As they neared the bomb's location, Lily's voice came over the comms. "Let me try one more time, Nox, please." Nox hesitated, every instinct screaming to protect the child. But he had come to trust Lily's judgment. "Be careful, little one." In the capital's central plaza, Ryla stood before the pulsing antimatter device. Her antenna rigid with fury, she raised the detonator. "For the true Betazoid way." "Wait!" Lily's voice rang out. The child emerged from the shadows, hands raised in a gesture of peace. Ryla's finger hovered over the trigger. "Why should I listen to you, human?" Lily took a step forward. "Because deep down, you know this isn't right. You've seen what peace can bring. Don't throw it all away. For a moment, Ryla's commitment wavered. Her antennae drooped, confusion etched across her features. Nox and his team watched from the shadows, weapons trained on Ryla. The next few seconds would determine the future of both their species. Ryla's grip on the detonator tightened. I can't. Ryla's hand trembled on the detonator. For a heartbeat, the plaza fell silent, the fate of two civilizations balanced on a knife's edge. Then, with a choked sob, Ryla's fingers unclenched. The detonator clattered to the ground. Nox's team surged forward, securing the antimatter device and restraining Ryla. As she was led away, her eyes locked with Lily's. "Why?" she whispered. Lily approached, her small hand resting on Ryla's arm. "Because everyone deserves a second chance." In the days that followed, Avaris erupted into a maelstrom of political upheaval. Ryla's arrest sparked protests from moderate separatists who, while denouncing her methods, echoed her concerns about colonial autonomy. Nox paced the war room, his antennae twitching with agitation. "We can't lose the momentum we've built," he growled. Drac, his eyes heavy with exhaustion, nodded. Perhaps it's time for a new approach. Their solution emerged, a betazoid federal system, granting significant self-governance to colonies like Avaris. To mediate the delicate negotiations, Nox reached out to Earth. The UN chambers buzzed with activity as human experts arrived. Jerry Ross strode in, Lily at his side. Her presence, once again, proved invaluable as talks progressed. "You don't understand," a betazoid colonial representative shouted, antennae quivering. "While you cozy up to the humans, our far-flung worlds suffer." Lily stepped forward, her voice calm. "No one's trying to replace you. We want to work together, learn from each other." As the summit wore on, a shadow fell over the proceedings. Krax, Nox's former mentor and architect of betazoid reform, revealed his terminal diagnosis. "My time grows short," Krax announced, his once powerful frame diminished by illness. "But our vision must endure. I nominate Drac as our next prime minister." The news sent shockwaves through betazoid society. Hardliners like Zor seized the moment, launching a wave of attacks across Avaris. Explosions rocked key infrastructure. Moderate voices fell silent, cut down by assassins' blades. In the aftermath of a particularly devastating bombing, Nox surveyed the carnage. His communicator crackled to life. "Commander," a human voice came through, "we have a proposal." Nox listened, his expression shifting from skepticism to guarded hope. Human ambassadors volunteered to embed themselves in Avaris communities, living alongside betazoids as impartial observers. "I want to go too," Lily declared, her chin set in tenacity. Jerry's face paled. "Absolutely not, it's too dangerous." But Nox saw the fire in her eyes. "She has a gift," he mused. "Perhaps as a friendship ambassador to the children?" On Avaris, human betazoid teams worked tirelessly to root out Zor's network. Lily moved among the colonists, her earnest curiosity disarming even the most suspicious. "Tell me about your home," she asked a group of betazoid children, their antennae swiveling with interest. As the children opened up, sharing stories and concerns, vital intelligence flowed. Piece by piece, the Alliance built a picture of Zor's operation. The raid on his stronghold was swift and brutal. Strike teams breached the perimeter, disruptors flashing in the pre-dawn gloom. Zor, cornered, snarled defiance. "You've already lost," he roared, activating a hidden trigger. The base shuddered. Explosions ripped through corridors. As the structure began to collapse, Nox's team fought their way clear, dragging the captured Zor. In the chaos, a chilling realization struck. Lily and several betazoid children were unaccounted for. Rescue efforts mobilized immediately. Human and betazoid searchers combed the wreckage, advanced sensors probing for any sign of life. Hours stretched into days. Just as hope began to fade, a faint signal pinged. Deep beneath the rubble, a flicker of life persisted. "There!" a betazoid technician shouted, antennae rigid with excitement. "An emergency bunker!" Human engineering expertise merged with betazoid strength. Carefully, meticulously, they dug. When the last barrier fell away, Lily emerged, leading a group of dust-covered but unharmed Betazoid children. As humans and Betazoids alike rushed to embrace the survivors, a palpable shift rippled through the crowd. Walls of suspicion crumbled, replaced by shared relief and newfound understanding. Knox watched the scene unfold, a spark of hope kindling in his chest. The road ahead remained fraught with challenges, but for the first time, he truly believed their two species could forge a lasting peace. Alliance. For the first time in generations, a fragile hope blossomed across Betazoid space. In the weeks that followed, Knox found himself grappling with an unfamiliar concept: peace. The constant threat of violence had defined his existence for so long that its absence left him feeling adrift. As he paced the halls of the mothership, his antennae twitched with restless energy. "Commander," Drax's voice interrupted his reverie, "the human delegation has arrived." Knox nodded, straightening his uniform. "Let's give them a proper welcome." The shuttle bay hummed with activity as the human cultural experts disembarked. Jerry Ross led the group, his eyes widening as he took in the sleek Betazoid architecture. "Impressive," he murmured, extending a hand to Knox. "Thank you for having us." Knox clasped Jerry's hand, still marveling at the strange human custom. "The pleasure is ours. We have much to learn from each other." As the delegation settled in, plans for a grand cultural exchange took shape. Human artworks, vibrant paintings, haunting sculptures, and recordings of Earth's diverse musical traditions were carefully prepared for display across Betazoid worlds. On Avaris, Lily threw herself into her role as unofficial ambassador with characteristic enthusiasm. She moved among the colony's youth, her laughter infectious as she shared stories of Earth and listened intently to their experiences. "What's your favorite Earth game?" a young Betazoid asked, antennae quivering with curiosity. Lily grinned, producing a worn deck of cards from her pocket. "Let me teach you something called Go Fish." As the children gathered around, eagerly learning the simple game, Knox watched from a distance. His communicator chirped, interrupting the moment. "Commander," a tense voice reported, "we've intercepted chatter from Ryla's loyalists. They're planning to disrupt the human exhibitions." Knox's claws clenched. "Increase security at all venues. And," he hesitated, glancing at Lily, "double the protection detail on the human child." The next days unfolded in a delicate dance of cultural exchange and heightened vigilance. As human art captivated Betazoid audiences, Ryla's separatists worked to undermine the growing bonds. Misinformation campaigns spread across communication networks, painting the humans as insidious conquerors. Knox found himself constantly on edge, torn between his duty to protect and his desire to embrace this new era of cooperation. The strain began to show, his usually impeccable uniform rumpled from sleepless nights. It was during one such restless moment that news of Krax's deteriorating condition reached him. The once powerful reformer lay pale and weak in his quarters, his time clearly drawing short. "Knox," Krax rasped, beckoning him closer. "It's time for a new generation to lead. You must support Drac in the transition." Knox's antennae drooped. "But sir, I'm not ready to step down. There's still so much work to be done." Krax managed a weak smile. "That's precisely why you must. Our people need to see that even their mightiest warrior can embrace change." The ceremony to install Drac as Prime Minister was a spectacle unlike anything in Betazoid history. The grand hall of the capital thronged with dignitaries from across the Federation. Human observers stood shoulder to shoulder with Betazoid officials, a living testament to their newfound alliance. As Drac took the oath of office, his voice ringing out with conviction, Knox felt a mixture of pride and unease. He scanned the crowd, ever vigilant for signs of threat. The attack, when it came, was as swift as it was unexpected. A high-ranking cabinet minister lunged forward, a concealed disruptor materializing in his hand. Time seemed to slow as the weapon aimed squarely at Drac's chest. In that frozen moment, a blur of motion caught Knox's eye. A human woman, part of the cultural delegation, moved with startling speed, her hand clamped down on the would-be assassin's wrist, twisting with practiced efficiency. The disruptor clattered to the ground as security forces swarmed. In the chaos that followed, Knox found himself face to face with the human operative. CIA, she said simply, her eyes hard. We got word from Lily's network. Seems those kids picked up on more than just card games. As the dust settled and the true scope of the hardline infiltration became clear, Drax stood before his people. His antennae quivered with emotion as he addressed the millions watching across Betazoid space. Today we face the demons of our past, he began, but we emerge stronger, united not just among ourselves, but with our human allies. To cement this new era, I propose a bold step forward. Knox listened, his eyes widening as Drax outlined his plan to relocate the capital to Avaris. The symbolism was undeniable, transforming the heart of separatist resistance into the beacon of their united future. As the speech concluded, Drax beckoned Knox forward. Bring the child, he said softly. Lily stepped onto the stage, her small hand clasped in Knox's much larger one. She gazed out at the sea of Betazoid faces, a tentative smile on her lips. Citizens of the Federation, Drax announced, his voice swelling with pride. I give you the spark that ignited our revolution, the human child who dared to show us a better way. A roar of approval erupted from the crowd. Lily's eyes widened in surprise as Betazoids across the planet and beyond cheered her name. Knox felt a surge of protective instinct as he looked down at the small human. She had become so much more than a symbol. She was the living embodiment of the future they were fighting to build. As the celebrations continued into the night, Knox's communicator buzzed. An encrypted message from Earth intelligence flashed across the screen. Operation Olive Branch compromised. Ryla still at large. Extreme caution advised. Knox's antenna stiffened. He looked out at the jubilant crowd, knowing that somewhere in the shadows, new threats were already taking shape. Knox's antennae twitched as he scanned the encrypted message once more. The celebration around him suddenly felt hollow, a veneer of joy masking the dangers that still lurked in the shadows. He pocketed his communicator and made his way through the crowd, nodding to the jubilant faces but unable to shake the growing sense of unease. Months passed and Avaris transformed. The once desolate colony blossomed into a bustling metropolis as Prime Minister Drax's ambitious infrastructure program took shape. Human and Betazoid construction crews worked side by side, erecting sleek residential towers and sprawling government complexes that seamlessly blended the architectural styles of both species. At the heart of it all rose the Pavilion of Concord, a vast public park that stretched as far as the eye could see. Knox stood at its edge, watching as teams of Earth botanists and Betazoid horticulturists carefully transplanted alien flora into meticulously designed landscapes. Impressive, isn't it? Drax's voice startled Knox from his reverie. Knox nodded, his eyes fixed on a human worker, delicately pruning a shimmering Betazoid crystal tree. It's a powerful symbol, he admitted. The park's opening ceremony drew crowds from across known space. As Knox surveyed the sea of faces, human and Betazoid alike, his gaze locked onto a familiar figure. Ryla, his former nemesis, stood rigid among the dignitaries. Their eyes met, and Ryla gave a curt nod. Knox returned the gesture, acutely aware of the cameras capturing their reluctant reconciliation. The roar of the crowd swelled as Lily, beaming with pride, stepped forward to cut the ceremonial ribbon. Beside her, Drax raised his arms in triumph, Zorgax purring contentedly at his feet. But the euphoria was short-lived. Within weeks, reports began trickling in of workers falling ill. Knox pored over medical records, his claws clenching as he recognized the telltale signs of toxic exposure. How could this happen? Drax demanded, pacing his office as Knox delivered the grim findings. The investigation uncovered a web of corruption and negligence. Betazoid developers, eager to meet impossible deadlines, had cut corners by using recycled materials from decommissioned warships. Human subcontractors, either through ignorance or complicity, had turned a blind eye to the dangers. As news of the scandal broke, Avaris erupted in chaos. Knox watched from the command center as protests engulfed the streets. The chants of angry demonstrators echoed through the halls of power, calling for Drax's resignation. In a desperate bid to salvage the situation, Drac made a controversial decision. "We're bringing in human environmental experts," he announced, his antennae drooping with fatigue. "Full access, complete transparency." The arrival of the Earth inspection teams brought a temporary lull to the unrest. Nox shadowed the human auditors as they combed through Avaris's facilities, their faces grim as they uncovered the extent of the safety violations. But as construction ground to a halt, new tensions arose. Betazoid laborers, suddenly without work, gathered in the half-finished districts. Their anger, stoked by shadowy agitators, found a convenient target in the human presence. "Go home, Earthers!" The shouts rang out as Nox escorted a team of inspectors through a particularly volatile neighborhood. He felt the weight of his disruptor at his hip, praying he wouldn't need to use it. As the situation deteriorated, reports of unrest in the outer colonies began to flood in. Nox's intelligence networks painted a troubling picture. Hardline warlords seizing control of entire star systems, backed by an unknown alien power. In the war room, surrounded by holographic star charts, Nox laid out his plan. "A surgical strike," he explained, gesturing to the highlighted rebel strongholds. "Fast, precise, before this spirals into full-scale civil war." Drac nodded gravely. "Do what you must, Commander, but tread carefully. We can't afford to shatter this alliance." As Nox assembled his strike team, a mix of elite human and Betazoid operatives, a familiar voice caught his attention. "I want to help," Lily said, her eyes shining with willpower. "Let me talk to the people. Show them we're all in this together." Nox hesitated, acutely aware of the dangers. But as he looked at the young human who had already changed so much, he saw a glimmer of hope. "Very well," he agreed, his antenna twitching with a mixture of pride and concern. "But you'll have a full security detail at all times." As Lily set out on her grassroots mission and Nox's commandos prepared for their clandestine operation, the fate of the fragile human Betazoid alliance hung in the balance. The Pavilion of Concord, once a symbol of unity, now stood as a stark reminder of the challenges that lay ahead. Nox's antennae twitched as he surveyed the holographic battle map. Red icons representing insurgent strongholds blinked ominously across the display. He turned to his assembled strike force, a mix of human special forces and Betazoid commandos. "Our targets are here, here, and here," Nox said, highlighting key positions. "Speed and precision are paramount. We neutralize the leadership before they can consolidate power." As the strike teams deployed, Lily embarked on her own mission. She moved through Avaris's bustling streets, flanked by a watchful security detail. Her voice rang out in public squares, her message of unity echoing through crowded marketplaces. "We've built something beautiful here," Lily told a gathered crowd, her eyes shining with conviction. "Human or Betazoid, we're in this together." While Lily worked to sway hearts and minds, Nox's forces struck deep into enemy territory. Disruptor fire lit up the night as they stormed a hardliner compound. In the chaos of close-quarters combat, Nox found himself face-to-face with a familiar adversary. "Gortak!" Nox growled, leveling his weapon at the renegade warlord. The former commander sneered, his antennae quivering with defiance. "You're too late, Nox. Our benefactors will—" A stun blast cut him short. As Gortak slumped to the ground, Nox motioned to his team. "Secure the prisoner. I want him conscious for questioning." Back at the forward operating base, Nox paced before the bound Gortak. "Who's backing you?" he demanded. "Where are the weapons coming from?" Gortak's laughter was cold and mirthless. "You fool," he spat. "The Pravok Dominion has been pulling the strings all along." Nox's blood ran cold. The implications were staggering. An ancient enemy seeking to destroy their newfound alliance from within. As human battlecruisers entered orbit around Avaris, reports flooded in of Pravok warships massing at the borders of Betazoid space. The capital erupted into chaos, with pro-human and anti-alien factions clashing in the streets. Nox burst into Drac's office, finding the Prime Minister slumped over his desk. "Sir, we need to act now. The Pravok—" A commotion in the hallway cut him short. Guards shouted in alarm as an explosion rocked the building. Through the smoke, a familiar silhouette emerged. Ryla, flanked by heavily armed insurgents. "Did you miss me, Nox?" she purred, training a disruptor on his chest. In the ensuing firefight, Nox found himself separated from Drac. He fought his way through the corridors, desperate to reach the human embassy where Lily and the other ambassadors had taken refuge. Outside, the night sky blazed with weapons fire as Pravok ships breached the defensive line. Ryla's forces, newly bolstered by their liberators, pushed deeper into the city. Nox arrived at the embassy to find it under siege. Human marines and loyal Betazoid guards held a crumbling perimeter as waves of insurgents pressed their attack. Through the chaos, he caught sight of Lily, no longer the wide-eyed child, but a young woman hardened by conflict. As Nox fought to reach her, a massive Pravok dreadnought loomed into view above the city, its weapons primed, poised to rain destruction upon defenders and invaders alike. Lily's eyes met Nox's across the battlefield. In that moment, he saw a fire ignite within her, a willpower that transcended the carnage around them. She stepped forward, shrugging off the restraining hands of her protectors. "Lily, no!" Nox shouted, but his voice was lost in the din of battle. The young human woman walked steadily into the no-man's land between the warring factions. In her hand, she clutched a single wildflower, a fragile bloom that had somehow survived amidst the devastation of avarice. Lily raised the flower high, her voice cutting through the cacophony of war. "Enough!"
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.